Okay, so here we have some skill building for shading techniques. So when we shade, we call that value, the lights and darks of something. So here it says, learning how to shade and show value can make your artwork come alive. This is how you create depth and make your drawings look realistic. So there's 4 methods of shading that I am teaching you. We have hatching, cross-hatching, blending, stippling. So here in this box, I want you to use a blending stump, and I want you to blend pencil and shade in this sphere here. So right now it just looks like a flat circle. So we're going to use shading and value to make it look 3-dimensional. Okay, for this one I want you to use blending. So that's this 3rd one here. So blending, what you do is you simply start shading with your pencil, and you want to think about pressure. Obviously, the darker that you need to make a mark, the harder you're going to press down. But be careful, you never want to press too hard, because then it's going to like kind of show on your paper. It's going to become shiny, and you're going to see kind of that texture of where you pressed on your paper. So if you look what I'm doing here, I'm following the curve of this circle shape. So when I shade a circle, you follow the curve of it. You don't want to shade it up and down, then it's going to look flat. Okay, so I'm starting here. I'm kind of starting with my darkest, just so I can place that out to begin with. So when you shade, you can think about layering. That's how you can get darker, rather than pressing super, super hard. Think about just going on top, again in a different direction with your pencil. Okay, and that makes it nice and dark. So now I have to soften this up. Okay, so this is my darkest part. And I'm just looking at this one here to help guide me. So now I'm using less pressure. And I'm going to keep lightening my pressure as I move up, because the highlight on this sphere is right here. That's the part that is all white, so I'm not going to shade that part at all. Okay, and then down here it gets a little lighter again. So your darkest part is right here on that sphere, and then in the back it's a little lighter. And what that is that's the reflection of the light coming around and hitting the back of the sphere there. So technically this is your darkest part. Alright, and then underneath my sphere it's also going to be pretty heavy and dark. This is my cast shadow, the shadow that my sphere is making onto the surface. So right under the sphere is going to be really heavy and dark, so layer your pencil. Go in a few different directions, and then it's going to get lighter as you move outward. So in this example, the light is coming in from this angle. That's where we're hitting. Alright, so now it says use a blending stump. So this is me shading it. And now I just have to soften everything that I've done. So to soften it, I use this thing. This is a blending stump. It kind of feels like I always think like what a lollipop would be on top of those sticks. And it has a little point. You can tell this one's been used. And all you do is you use this, and you're going to see what happens. It softens every mark that you make, so we don't see those little streaks of your pencil anymore. Okay, so you want to soften your sphere, and you want to soften that cast shadow a bit. Be careful when using a blending stump. Some people like to go overboard when they soften and blend, and then everything just becomes the same color gray. We don't want that. We still want to be able to see the light gray, medium, dark, all that. We want to see that. If you go crazy with your blending stump, it'll all just look the same, and then you've defeated the whole purpose of this activity. Okay, so that's how you blend with a blending stump, showing value. Okay, now down here I am going to use the other 3 shading techniques, and I'm going to do a value scale. So this is an example of a value scale. You go dark to light. Okay, so with hatching means you're kind of just going in one direction, and when you're on your darkest value, you want to make sure that all your hatch marks are really close together, because you don't want the white of the paper coming through. That's the point. The more white of the paper that comes through, the lighter your value will look. So I do hatch marks, And then as I move up to get lighter, I'm going to space out my hatch marks a little further apart, but you don't want to get too light too quick. When I space them apart, more white is coming through, and that's what makes the values change. Notice how I'm not being too concerned. If I get out of the lines a little bit, that's okay. Really what I'm looking for here is how well are you showing that dark to light, doing the technique. Okay? If you notice what I just did, I had to move backwards because I noticed this value was too similar to this value. Each one should look a little different. Okay, so it should be getting lighter as I go. None of them should look the same. And as you get lighter, it gets a lot easier because you don't have to do as much. Okay, so there's hatching. Now cross hatching, you're going to do the same method as hatching. So you're going to make all your hatch marks go in one direction. You want to cross hatch, so now I'm going to make hatch marks go in the other direction. This gives a really cool effect when people sketch and they shade using hatch marks, cross hatching. So two directions there. And then you do the same thing as hatching, so you'll just separate them a little further as you get lighter. Okay, and then the last one I'm going to do is stippling. For stippling, I actually like to use a marker, just because I think it takes a little too long with pencil, and every time I've ever done a stippling art assignment, I've used marker. And you get a little thicker of a mark. So if you notice, all I'm doing is making dots. This is called stippling. There is an artist who did all this with paint, and he kind of made this technique popular. His name's George Seurat. And he painted large paintings all in dots. So again, just like with hatching and cross hatching, you want to cover up most of the white paper. So your darkest one is going to take you the most time because you got to cover up a lot of the white. That's what's making the dark. And then as you move on, you can let more of the white come through, so you can space out your dots a little more to create that value. So anytime that you are creating artwork, you need to think about these blending, shading techniques. And how can you add value into your art? Okay, so here is how we shade using blending stump, hatching, cross hatching, and stippling.